Oh, we got Australia. Just beat out Hawaii. Colorado.
Well, are you guys ready to get started?
Sure.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to Beyond Words. Tonight the topic is enhancing AAC for older communicators. And we have Mr. Anthony Arnold, who will be visiting with John Halloran, talking about some of the advocacy issues and changes that he's experienced as he's gotten older as an AAC communicator. Tonight, we will have time for questions. You can use the chat button or the question and answer button, and I'll be moderating those. And after tonight, we will be putting this recording on YouTube, and the link to that recording will be in your email that you receive from us. Follow up. It's an automated email from Zoom, so be on the lookout for that. And in that Zoom email, you will also have a link to the certificate of your attendance for tonight. So with that, I am going to stop my share and turn it over to John and hide myself. And I'll be in the background to get your questions moderated.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. You're always a great help. So, all right, Anthony, we have had a lot of fun in preparing for this, and I really appreciated getting to know you. So for years and years, I've known you from a distance and had seen your advocacy, and I remember seeing you present at places like Pittsburgh Employment Conference 20 or 25 years ago. So you're a pioneer of the field, and you've experienced a lot. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you showed up on our Facebook group and you said you were using words for life, and you were describing that your spasticity was getting worse with age. And anyway, I wouldn't say I was excited to have you on Words for Life, but I remember contacting you saying I want you to tell me your journey, just express what is happening through the Facebook group or through emails. And you did a beautiful job. You've been doing a beautiful job telling us your journey and for others to learn from you. So, so a funny thing happened. Anthony wrote a speech for another conference, and he was going to give it to give it tonight. He still probably will, but anyway, it's quite long. And when we practiced, I realized you gave the speech without breaks in it, and I asked you to do it again with breaks in it this time, so we can ask questions in the middle of it. I'm excited to hear you give that speech with breaks in it. All right, now I'm talking too much. I can get to you, but I just got to tell the background story. So then I submitted about 10 questions to you that said, I'd like to ask you these first. So I said, I'd like to ask you these 10 questions first. An example was, how old were you when you got your first device? So in practice, how did you answer that?
I got my touch talker at age 7.
That's the speech you wrote. So I'll go ahead and go with it. So go.
I love saying that I had a robotic voice as a child.
Yes.
Back then, there were no pre-programmed vocabularies, so we had to design our own.
So you and your speech therapist designed your system on your own. Perfect.
It required input from everyone working with me to determine what words I needed to have access to.
Now, Anthony, who do you think was the most important person in that group? And this is the part I've wanted you to be able to stop and ask questions in the middle of your speech, which
I think everybody, included. The
Very good.
school, vehicle, bus, I think everybody included the school bus.
The school bus driver and everybody, the aides, everybody was included in your thing. What if, you know, what's wonderful about that, Anthony, is you didn't miss a beat, because that is what it takes, a real village to do this. And you got everyone together and you had input, and aides or bus drivers, they're all just as important as anybody else because they're around you. Now, Anthony, this is speech you're giving now, where you give a speech, you take questions in the middle of it. To me, this is shows your real charm. So I'm loving the way this is going. Keep going back to your story.
It was an extensive process. While we were building up my vocabulary, my parents expected me to use my communication device anywhere and everywhere I happened to be.
Pretty bossy.
It did not even get to take a half of a day off.
You didn't get a half a day off. Work, Anthony, work.
We may laugh at this, but I truly believe you need to have this kind of expectation.
Anthony, if you don't mind, do you know the hardest place to make a device work is in the home? Because parents have a love language that they understand, that where they communicate without a device. So your parents, do you use your device? Do your parents understand you without using the device a lot? No, that you use the device with them? Good. You know what else I like, Anthony, is I like that you show all the other forms of communication, like your verbal speech and your gestures. But okay, I'll be quiet and let you work. Let you give your speech. I'm too excited to talk to you to listen to the speech.
If you want to see gains in not only communication but overall independence, I continued to use my customized vocabulary because they did not want me to relearn a completely different system.
How old were you then when you were on that customized system?
Seven. On. Two. 1. 7 on to 21.
Oh, that's quite a while. From 7 to 21, you were on your customized vocabulary. Very good. That's great information.
Looking back on it, I wish I would have spoken up because I could have been more advanced.
Everybody has regrets. You're doing as well as you did. No regrets, my friend.
In this field, we often do not like change.
Nobody does.
And because of fear of change, we sometimes limit progress from occurring.
Very true.
I went from my liberator to Pathfinder, and this is when I first started using the Unity vocabulary.
Very good. So you were around 21 when you got a Pathfinder, and you got on Unity, and you got on Unity for the first time. How did that go for you?
I taught myself in a weekend.
that's not typical. Do you learn Unity in a weekend? Unity 144. So you're on 144 locations on a Pathfinder.
I learned Unity in a single weekend.
Unbelievable.
I felt empowered.
Well, I bet it was empowering.
Because now I had access to a more extensive vocabulary. I liked how they had the language organized.
You know, when you switch to Words for Life, it really wasn't a new vocabulary. About 90% of it was the exact same architecture and plan that Bruce had designed. So I know when you went to it, you really were still, you didn't really go to a new vocabulary. You went to a modified version of what you'd already learned. Which I think, how long did it take you to did you get fluent at Words for Life? Should have taken you longer. You're a lot older when you get Words for Life. Not a lot, well,
I
20.
taught myself in a weekend.
That works pretty good too. All right, my friend.
And then the Accent 1400.
So
When
then
the Accent 1400 was first available, I worked as a beta tester.
yeah, so you got it. Basically, you were trialing it out to check it out before anyone else saw it. Good for you.
So no bragging, but I had the Unity vocabulary before the public release.
And have you always felt like PRC Saltillo valued your input? I know it's a loaded question. I know it's a loaded question. I knew the answer, but when they asked it, but I really do know that they value you as a person and your thoughts. Other device users too, but I know Anthony Arnold's important to the PRC Saltillo. So.
As memories come together, I looked at Unity 84 several times throughout my years of communicating with BECKO and Accent 1400, primarily because I liked its feel.
Sure. So you looked at the 84 and thought maybe I should try that sometime, but didn't want to do it.
I have nothing against Unity 144, but I feel it is a little much if you want effortless communication for various activities in different environments.
I guess that depends on the person and their hand control and their muscle control.
Yeah.
I also prefer the embellished icons.
Well, now you're singing my language, my friend. So
For learning the different combinations throughout the system. We have had icon prediction since the Liberator. But the entire icon change offers a more significant visual clue for learning effective motor plans. Before accessing embellished icons, I often resorted to my spelling page because I was not mastering various sequences. I know we have some individuals who cannot handle icon changes, but I feel the brains work differently from person to person.
sure, and everybody isn't. You're 100% right about knowing that we need different options for different people.
My communication was dying, and I had to bring it back to life.
That line is one Stephanie and I both, when you wrote that, that was an actual spontaneous something you said while we were preparing. You said my communication was dying and I had to do something to bring it back. And both Stephanie and I wrote that down. It was so powerful to hear you say that. So I'm glad you found your voice back.
Since getting the echo, my communication was slowly dying, and I need to work with that extensive overlay.
Sure, 144 locations with your spasticity getting tighter and the screen that made it hard for you.
However, I kept using it because I was still a good user and thought I needed more icons to stay effective.
Correct. And I took all these are all comments you put on our Facebook group, and I'm gonna try to address some of them. So I'm not sure if it's Kim Ho or not, or someone's asking about the embellished icons, but it's a KH anyway. So I just jumped to who I thought, and someone I knew had a KH. But these are questions that Anthony put on Facebook in our group that you can find, and I'm gonna try to answer them when he's done giving his speech. So.
I wish I did not have this mindset because I lost years of being the effective user I want to be and am today.
Well, welcome home.
Clinicians and family members need to take their clues from the individual rather than what research indicates.
Well, you're right about that. Your clients' effectiveness, how well they're doing, is the most that is your guiding light of clinical practice. So you're right about that.
We are using it and should have some say in what we feel most comfortable with.
Correct.
You can always show them the various vocabulary programs in the system, but you want something that offers them the comfort they want as a communication device user. Thanks to LampWords for Life, I have significantly reduced the number of times I resort to my spelling page. I'm now remembering more of my combinations. Before changing to LampWords for Life, word prediction was more potent than MinSpeak, at times for me. I believe LampWords for Life is how Bruce intended MinSpeak to be as minimum effort.
Now you're just stirring the pot, causing trouble for me the rest of my life. But just so I want everyone to know, you got to promise me, Anthony, they'll know you wrote every word of this, and all your. I'm not feeding you information because I know that I look like I fed you that, but I did not.
I know that I'm more confident in voicing different opinions now. If one of my ideas does not work as intended, there is always a plan B and other letters and numbers.
Correct. There's always another. You got to keep. You don't give up. That goes for everybody out there. You can't give up.
You need to do some experimentation. I changed to LampWords for Life last July. I was on a conference call with someone from our company, and I was embarrassed by how I was accessing my communication device. Especially when I was trying to rush when I was composing something. It was not how I wanted to be known. I worked hard to get to this level and felt I needed to reinvent myself before it was too late. I did this without guarantees, but I think I have completely reinvented myself and have not let up since.
That's for sure.
Communication is too important, and you don't want to give up on anything. I may be happy with LampWords for Life, but if I need to devise a different strategy for the future, I will do so.
Amen. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I won't be happy, but you have to do what you got to do, my friend.
I did not know how extensive my vocabulary was before adding words.
How many words do you think you've added, Anthony, since you started? Just so people know, what he has to do is he has to close his notebook, so it takes a few clicks to get out of the notebook he's reading from, and then he goes back to his talking mode. So there's a few extra keystrokes that are not normally there when you're just talking.
I think 10,000.
Oh, you've added 10,000 more, or you're up to 10,000 words.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. That is a lot of words. Wow. Well, way to go, my friend. I know some others have added a few thousand, but 10,000 is the most I've ever heard. But there's only one Anthony Arnold, so I'm going to show a calculator on how many empty icons there are here in a little bit. So you had plenty of real estate to do it. So well done.
I already have a few hundred hours in this and continuously add things to my overall vocabulary.
Well done.
Yeah.
I often wonder what it would be like for somebody who does not have a technical background.
Yeah, if I can hold you up a second, only 10% of individuals with complex communication needs, around 10% what I read is can encode a spelling level that would allow them to put those words in there themselves. So they have to speak within a finite number of words, which was a different webinar we did with Lucas McCarty. So they have to have a backdoor way of doing what you're doing, is they have to use the words they have more effectively. And you add words as you see you need a word, which is genius on your part. Very good.
Would they have done this to this extent?
Nobody I know of. So
Would they need assistance doing this?
most people would.
Yeah.
Could I offer this as a service, where people tell me what they want to have programmed?
Now you're stealing my job.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing this.
I bet you do a great job with it.
I spell considerably less.
Do you know what? I think you told me 7% or 5%, something like that. You think you're spelling?
Yeah.
That's a good number.
Knowing that communication is more effortless has made my communication device more appealing. I have very few pre-programmed messages because I have learned that communication is often spontaneous.
You're really nailing it there. It really does take a word-based system to allow you to be generative and communicate like you're doing. That's a beautiful comment, Anthony.
I don't know what I want or need to say 10 minutes from now.
And the worst part is if it's predictable, we don't need it. So that's the other thing.
We need a robust vocabulary with words that we can say instantaneously.
And in the order you choose to put them in, not the machine, the device. The device can't pick the word order for you. You have to be able to pick the order of the words you use. It's an important feature.
I credit my interest in current events and politics to one of my elementary school teachers.
I forgot to tell him that I asked you because I knew you wanted to run for Senate someday. So he's asked why he wants to be a senator, what he's going to do as a senator.
She used to assign us to watch the news or read the newspaper, and then we would discuss whatever happened in school.
Good teacher.
I wonder if she would do such nowadays.
It would be tough to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. This is questionable.
You're right about that.
I have considered getting into politics.
You got my vote.
I could see working on disability issues, such as funding and rethinking how we deliver services. I know one state that only funds one communication device a lifetime.
And I remember when you found that out, Anthony, you said you wanted me to come, you wanted to fly there together and meet the legislators. And I said, well, was it Minnesota? Was that the state you were telling me it was? I forget what state it was you told me it was. Probably Arkansas.
Yeah.
My own state. Well,
Yeah.
that's why you got a hold of me and said, "Can I come talk to your legislators?"
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, we need you here.
Mm.
Which is not right.
No, it's not right at all.
I respect the 5-year rule, but we have to do better when it comes to funding and empowering people.
Amen.
I would also love to write legislation that says when someone attains a communication device, they receive a certain amount of hours for customization.
Wouldn't that be important if you got not only got the device funded, but you got the implementation funded,
Yeah.
the setup and the building those fringe vocabulary that are important to you. All that can be done on the front end.
We could do better if we had more money to work with.
It always comes down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I would also like to update the Americans with Disabilities Act with things we have learned since the original law.
Very good. You've lived it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, Anthony, you did a great job. That is now the way you gave that speech one line at a time. Did you like it better?
Yeah.
I really think it really came across powerful. You gave the same speech with no break. This being able to give your vocalizations in the middle of an answer, a few questions, really to me lit it up and showed your true potential. So thank you for being willing to change that style. It looks like you have some questions. Stephanie, do you want to read them, or do you know we can take a few questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to read them. I've been eyeballing them. So Kim Hine was asking Anthony, the words that you've added, are they typically nouns or core words? I guess maybe what percentage might be nouns?
Anything and everything.
If you need to say it, you put it in there.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Yeah.
we spoke at ATIA, and if I'm remembering correctly, you know, we talked about some different categories of words that you've added. Am I just making that up? Are there some specific categories that you've kind of really beefed up?
Yes, like the word advocacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what words related to advocacy were important you'd add. We do have we have a version of Words for Life with 1,000 more words in it that we're thinking of releasing as a module. So it would be based on your background and stuff. And it's something we could be, it is something that could be beta tested, but having 10,000 words uh, based on one individual's what works for you doesn't necessarily work for everybody else, and we need sort of a universal design to it. But the architecture gives you an architecture. I'm sure if you were storing drinks, you started with the drink button, or if you were storing, you followed the architecture, you just added within those categories. It's what most people would do. All right, another question, Stephanie.
Well, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this statement that Rajul made. I hope I said your name correctly. They said so many students don't always have access to their devices because not all staff are good about keeping it handy, and not all parents recognize the importance of using it, even though we train them and try to make it easy. So I wonder if you have a comment about that observation.
That's hard. Because people peoples sometimes think we can be understood without anything. That's hard because people sometimes think we can be understood without anything.
Yeah, he's nailing it there. A lot of teachers and aides, they really believe they have such a good read of your body language and your gestures and your the verbal approximations. Why would I use that device? The only thing I can add is somehow build up their belief in themselves and give them all the credit in the world. Most of the time when you find an Anthony in the world, it was a parent and an aide and a teacher. And I think about some of us speech therapists spent more time building up their self-esteem and their ability to understand the system. And there's one tool that's having an impact all across the United States at school districts. I was in Ohio recently with Jenny Monahan. I don't remember the name of the school, but it was a beautiful school, and they had about 115 people in the room. And I asked the room, how many of you in this room know how to use the tool called Word Finder? And when I did, almost the entire room went up. And I knew that they'd have high success rates, and they are. So what they had taught all the staff to do was to go to the kid's device, spell the word to see where it is so they could teach them where that word is in the moment. And that one tool, I think that one tool, if taught to staff, can dramatically improve a whole lot of kids' lives and adults' lives. So I think it's we listening better and coming up with more tools like that, and then with the help of the speech therapists and the OTs in the therapy world, spreading that message that makes a difference. And if you don't know where the words are in the device and it's overwhelming to you and you haven't had any training on it, it's really hard to implement it. But if you can give them a few really good tools that let them engage with the student more and then build up their self-esteem, I hope we get to the point where we find the therapists, aides, teacher aides, and you even included the bus driver. I hope we get to a point where we find that those valued inputs, praise them for their input, and give them the credit, and hopefully they'll build on that. All right, so I see a few questions on. Bonnie's asked a question that's gonna. I have my share screen.
I have, well, and there's a question that's a short answer, and then I was going to ask you a question with a longer answer that would leave
sure.
in your screen. The short answer, Anthony, and just to let you guys know, because Anthony's dad was going to be there to help show what his device looks like. So the question, Anthony, is how do you activate your icons? Do you use your index finger, thumb, or stylus? And also, has your direct selection activation changed over the years, secondary to your spasticity?
great question. I think
I use. My. But. I. Needed. To get. Out. The. Key guard. I use my index, but I needed to get out the key guard.
so. Raise your finger up high so they can see. He just uses his finger. That's his good pointer right there. Use one hand, correct?
Yeah.
And then he uses a key guard. And you have the only variable on your acceptance time is you have a repeat rate at 0.4 seconds. So if you double activate a single key, it doesn't activate. Is that correct?
Yeah.
When he sent me his file to learn from, I studied what his features were just for kind of prepare for this training too. So I saw that it was the only access method thing he had changed was the repeat rate. So I'm thinking when you get on a button, you either double tap sometimes or you can't get off it before it activates again. And so you adjust. And I asked him earlier who helped him make those adjustments. Did he have an OT? Because my wife's an OT and she loves access too. And he said he hadn't seen a therapist in years. So he's at a point where he becomes his own technical guidance and sets his own settings. But for a lot of others, they would need someone who really understands those variables. And if you don't understand them, make sure you get with your PRC consultant and shoot a video of the kid or describe the individual and tell them, here's what they're doing. What do you think I should do to better help this person not have mishits?
Yeah.
And just to clarify a little more details about your device, yes, your device is mounted to your wheelchair, correct?
Yeah.
And do you have a 1000 or a 1400?
One. 4. 14.
Thank you. Now, I think this next question will lead you into some of the other things you wanted to share. And it was about why do you think why do some people think that using embellished icons increases the visual and cognitive load? And then I think some people need an understanding what embellished icons are.
Yeah, I think that's. Anthony, do you want me to try to cover that since I have
Yeah.
it in the PowerPoint, but I think I'll just cover it because it seems to be so I'm going to show you two versions of Lamp Words for Life. So well this is Unity, but let me see, you're probably not seeing my screen there, are you? So let me share my screen first. And there's no right or wrong. Every person has it, like I'm going to show this as if there's a right way or wrong way, and you just have to know there's not. It just depends on the person. But I'm gonna go to Words for Life and try to explain it. See if you understand this. Okay, so I'm going to show you what a non-embellished icon would look like. When Anthony first got on his Pathfinder and he wanted to say the word bite, he touched an apple and then he went to the dog. His apple was over here, a couple keys, but his same exact sequence. He hit the apple, he went to the dog, and then he went to Mr. Action Man and he got the word bite because that dog is biting a newspaper. So if you're on a static overlay and there's no embellishment of the icon, you touch apple, dog, and this button, Mr. Action Man, for bite. The word chew is the apple plus the finger here, because this guy chews his fingernails, plus verb. So you can see that sequence. Now, let me show you another example. In Words for Life, when you hit the drink, the bridge here becomes wine. And the reason is because if you drink too much wine, you end up living under a bridge. But that's that's my funny one. But so drink plus, this is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And when you land on the plane, you got to go across here to get out to Napa Valley. And if you're lucky, you get a nice, beautiful hotel room looking out at the romantic and drink some wine, looking at the bridge. And again, if you drink too much, you'll end up living under the bridge. So when Anthony first got his device, he had to learn that drink plus bridge was wine. Did you ever learn all those meanings, or did you just learn this button plus this button?
No. Mean. Meaning. Meanings. No meanings.
Yeah. So anyway, that's true for a lot of individuals who use the device. It's very helpful though. So that's a non-embellished icon. In Words for Life, when you hit the drink, the bridge changes to a bottle of wine, confirming that you were correct about the bridge being wine, taking you to wine country and being romantic. So here's the word up. When I hit drink, the reason Coke shows up here is because some people get up in the morning and drink Coke caffeine. And when Coke first came out, it had cocaine in it. And people shoot up Coke and they snort up Coke, and they shouldn't, but that's where Coke is here. So you see that, and when Anthony, when you laugh at that, we believe that makes learning very easy and very important. So if you know one thing about Words for Life, what you know is we actually love Bruce Baker's multi-meaning symbols. We love it. We love them so much. We included them almost everywhere. Like if I said, what drink is good for you? Everyone in this room would say the drink that's good for you is water. So drink plus good is water. And what I think, Anthony, is that you can see that sequence before you begin. So I think you can understand drink good is water, and you can see that sequence before you begin. So I think it changing just confirms, yes, I was right. The water is something that's good for me to drink.
Water.
And when you were writing to me, that's what you were telling me. Well, I'll let you say it in your own words. Do you find that icon embellishing helps you?
Yeah.
And. Another thing was when I started using anything I was just learning how to read. And another thing was when I started using anything, I was just learning how to read.
And there's a huge benefit to that reading process too. So Anthony, what I'm going to try to do is cover this quick PowerPoint I made for it. It's going to cover that same topic again, but these are the topics that you brought up, and I stole these topics from Facebook. So you posted on Words for Life Facebook, because I just know there's going to be these people thinking I fed you this information, but you have to. I know they'll trust you and not me. But anyway, Anthony joined our Facebook group. And I want, again, all the comments, they're still on the Facebook group. If you don't belong to the Lamp Words for Life users group, join the group, type in Anthony Arnold and read all of his posts out since July. So this was one of your first ones that said, I've always been fairly advanced. I had been using Unity 44 for years with great success until recently with, then I gotta smooth this so I can see, when my muscles have gotten tighter and affecting my navigation. Well, yes, people are going to get tighter as they get older. And as someone who has Parkinson's disease, Anthony, I'm becoming you. My spasticities, I don't have the shake type. I have the tightening type and the slowing type. And so until they understand that your body's going to change and get tighter. But the beautiful thing was you didn't have to relearn the architecture. But when you went to 84 buttons, the architecture was still the same. And I'm going to show why they were so much the same. So then on 9/20/24, you wrote, Lamp Words for Life has brought back the joy of communication. And this communicating and writing, because of its simplicity of having bigger buttons, that's because Anthony went from 144 buttons on a 14-inch screen to 84 buttons on a 14-inch screen. But yet the architecture of the vocabulary didn't actually move much. And certainly the concepts didn't change where all the verbs were and stuff. So because of having a simpler motor plan or bigger buttons, nothing. Then you also went on to comment that you liked that nothing got pre-programmed twice. I'll never understand why people want to put words in duplicate words. So I appreciated you coming up with the feature that every word's in there just one time. And then you said, I wonder if this gets mentioned when working with someone such as who deals with the spasticity affecting our access. Then you wrote, sure, I just lost 60 buttons. And I'm going to get to those 60 buttons. So anyway, these are some more comments you had in there when you wrote your own stuff in there. I shouldn't be skipping any of it. But I want to make sure people understand that a child's vocabulary is just a subset of the adult's vocabulary. And we have to have a system that grows from that very beginning vocabulary to your adult vocabulary. And then if you have trouble, still has the ability to keep you navigating those buttons. The first thing, when you said you added 10,000 words, what's so powerful about the way Words for Life is designed is that you didn't have to navigate more than 2 keystrokes to do that, or 3 keystrokes. You'd have to go to 3 keystrokes on some words to do it. Actually, I'll show you the calculator. So this is something I call the AAC motor calculator formula. I wish people would apply this to all the devices on the market. So here's how it works. I know when Stephanie first saw this, she said, John, I just see people's eyes rolling over. And then when Cindy saw it, she said, please don't show this. But anyway, I'm going to show it, show it anyway. So you take the number of cells, which is C. So in our situation, we have 85 buttons or 84 buttons, depending on how you want to count the delete last selection or the clear display. But in Unity 144, you got 144 buttons. So C is the number of cells. Then you have to take all the talking buttons. Anything that talks when you touch it gets minus, because that key is a dead cell. Words like is, are, to, the. If you touch them and they talk, then that cell is taken away. It's still part of your vocabulary, but you can't use it for navigation. Then any tool is minused. So buttons that are tools, like a clear display or a spell mode, you lose those for talking. That gives you an N, or a number. And that's the number of the locations that's available when you subtract T and B, which is the tools and the number of the buttons that talk. So anyway, here's what ends up happening if you follow that formula with Words for Life. In Words for Life, you take the words that are available with 3 sequences or less. We have 85 buttons because we have a delete last selection or a clear display if you want to count it. We minus those 3 tools, delete last selection, spell mode, and clear display. We have 10 words that are words like is, are, to, and the that occur very frequently in speech. Gives you a number of 72. So after you touch any one of those 72 buttons, you have 82 blank locations, because clear display and go back remain there, which gives you 5,904 keystrokes at 2 hits. That's why when you added 10,000 words, you had to go to the 3rd location, because you'd run out of buttons if we only tried to do it all at 2 hits. So your machine going to the 3rd icon gives you the ability to have 484,128 hits, which leaves you lots of real estate to add vocabulary. And the things that are most important, you can be 2 keystrokes away. So when you were on 144, because they didn't use they used all the buttons were used for other things, so you had a real navigating key of 84 locations. And because 84 is not that great of a difference between 72, you didn't lose as much as you thought. You didn't lose 60 locations, you lost 10 locations. And then in Unity, they lose, I don't give them the activity row because you wrote in one of your comments that you have always found the activity row confusing. Well, it changes the motor plan and it resets. And so you lost all those ability to use those keys both for MinSpeak multi-meaning symbols, but you also lost those keys for navigation. They do take you to 12 more or 5 more, but you lose those if you're pure about having a MinSpeak sequence. So the next thing you brought up, Anthony, is you said in your Facebook post, you said, I don't understand why anybody would want words stored in more than one way. And I don't get it either. If in the 144, once you learned that the music note plus the top row gave you the iPod, then it makes perfect sense to me that'd be the only way you would have wanted to do it. You wouldn't want to do a 3 keystrokes, 4 keystrokes, or 5 keystrokes. And same thing's true in Unity 84. You wouldn't want to do it in 5 keystrokes, 3 keystrokes, or 2 other ways of 3 keystrokes. In Words for Life, you had one way to do it. And that one way you did it was hitting the music note plus, and this is me going over embellished icons. So when you're in Words for Life, there's only one way to say iPod. And the way you say iPod is you hit the music note, which is right here, and then the word little, because when they first came out, they were little, gives you the word iPod. The reason you hit music, and this is album, is because it used to have a needle that came down on the screen. So when I tell you music note, because I use that top row for MinSpeak sequencing or multi-meaning symbols, I get the benefit of you seeing that sequence before you begin and keeping that sequence short. All right, so that was some of the stuff you brought up in your several months of posting that I was giving an answer to what an embellished icon is and why you had so many open cells for storing those 10,000 words. So when your spasticity increases and you have, I'm looking, it's in my way here. So when you have spasticity problems and you have, how does those, then motor plans and visual, how does visual processing and motor plans, how are they affected by spasticity basically? So the first thing is less sequencing is easier. I don't think it would take much research to prove that less sequencing would be easier if you have spasticity. This is an interesting one. Motor plans made less similar makes motor planning easier. Is that true, Lance? So if I store mom over here and dad over here, so in Words for Life, bad is in the corner because when you're bad, you get put in the corner, and good is in the middle. We didn't put good and bad next to each other. We made them farther apart. Would you say with your spasticity, making motor plans farther apart makes it easier or harder for you?
It is. Easier. To learn. Their places. It is easier to learn their places.
When they're farther apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's research that the Duchovny study from the University of Berkeley found that same, division of Berkeley found that same. If you want, we'll email you that study. And then color coding and embellishing the icons makes the visual processing easier for you to search across the screens. Now I can't get over the importance of a key guard. The first time I saw you, you were on Words for Life, you didn't have a key guard. I don't know if you remember that. So I saw you on Words for Life with no key guard. And I said, my friend, get a key guard.
Yeah.
And then next time I saw you had a key guard. If you have spasticity, one of the most important things will improve your targeting is having a key guard on your device. It also creates a static grid. So your brain sees 3 holes over, 4 holes up. There's a real benefit to the grid showing. So Anthony, would you agree that the reason you did your key padding so heavy on your device is because you like seeing the grid on your device? Is that correct?
Yes. I like. Separate. Separation. Yes,
Yes.
I like separation.
So anyway, if you don't have a key guard, at least have the grid showing and make your padding a little thicker than it shows up on most devices. I see a lot of people with icons floating in space where there's no grid. The overlay itself, the key guard or the grid creates the static benefit of a static system. When people say there's a benefit of a static system, the grid itself and the overlay and it having a padding or a line between them creates that same perception that benefits you. Then the last thing is making sure that have people that know how to change things like the acceptance time and auto repeat rate and dwell times and things like whether you select on activation or release. There's a lot of variables you have to make sure that people know how to help you with. So if you can describe your problem or shoot a video of someone's hand using a device, make sure you don't have a tool out there that could really benefit you. Anthony, do you store words or move words to locations that's easier for your body to hit?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I know you took.
It varies. Sometimes it varies.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, but it'll be something to consider. So in this situation here, I'm just showing this is an example on the accent with Empower. When you go to access with touch, these are the variables you have that you can adjust, but you have to really understand how those variables work with each other to be using them. So Anthony, you have been a friend to many people you've never met. Not just your dog, but you're an advocate and a friend to people who you'll never meet and don't know who they are. And you've been doing this work for how many years have you been doing advocacy for people with disabilities?
4, 0, 40.
For 40 years you're a pioneer in the field. Now, this is a younger Anthony Arnold presenting at the Pittsburgh Employment Conference with Russell Cross must be introducing you as a panel. Bach Shelton's there. I think that might be Rick Creech. I don't remember for sure who that is, but these are pioneers of the field, including Russell, who's a true pioneer. And then when you see, I got to show you this. Anthony, there's you and Russell and your dad, John, in the background. And I got to see if I can read this. This was from your Facebook post. You said, I feel I'm good for another 46 years. I wonder what kind of technology we're going to have at that point. So Anthony, who knows where the technology is going to take you, but I assure you, you'll still be a pioneer in the field, teaching people how to use the products and make them better. And you've been a great friend to PRC Saltillo, and they value you. So Stephanie, do we have time for questions?
There are a couple of good ones. If you guys have a few minutes to stay past the hour, I would love to ask a few more questions.
All right, go ahead.
A few people are asking about the kind of is there a document somewhere that describes those stories that you were just telling about each icon? I did share the icon rationale chart for the original MenSpeak icons, but I wonder.
There's a lot of them are made up, and you can make up your own just as well. Most of them I do have in my head. We didn't throw things randomly when we do that. When we did the next 1,000 words, but when you go to a third page, there is no reason why we put something where we did. So let's say if you're on the category for fruits, there would be no rationale behind those. All your mid sequences are just Bruce Baker's genius work. So almost all your mid sequences are just right from Bruce's work. So for instance, you may not have, and there's what will happen to us if we release why we did everything the way we did is that the university people will start saying that a visual scene of a house, it's really easy for a kid to find the milk. And John Halloran and the lamp people think that a drink plus a mother holding a baby, because the mother feeds their breast milk to the baby as milk, and they'll say, can you understand drink mother is milk? And if you can't, then see, so when we did drink, we did it with the body parts, because they used to say that calcium was good for your bones, so that's why body parts come there. But if I release that, as beneficial it is, and we do talk about it in the trainings, I can just see the University of Pittsburgh putting out a published paper saying that Lamp thinks that kids with autism can understand that drink plus body parts equals milk. It's more for the therapists, the teachers, than it is the kids. And it's really important that people know that motor plans come first, or gestures come first. Metaphors, analogies, and associations come second. So if I love juice, and I'm a kid with autism or cerebral palsy, and I hit the drink, and juice comes from the word down, because you have to squeeze down in those old things to get it out of there, then if I love juice, what I really learn is these two halves, this button plus this button, or think of it as a memory game. This card plus this card equals juice. And of course, you have these beautiful features I brought up earlier today, like word predict, like this ability to use this spell mode where it says, Junior, this is the feature called Word Finder I want everyone to use with the kids. If you see you're in the lunchroom and Jimmy's pointing to juice, he's getting really excited, then you can turn this feature on where you go to spell mode, and when he hits it, it lights it up and says, here I am. Now, I think later you could explain to people that you squeeze down on it, but what I don't want them to think is that you have to understand the metaphors and analogies and associations before, or even a categorical sort, that this button equals drinks. That's not how this works. You understand the sequence first, then over time you understand the metaphors, analogies, and associations. The mid sequences do not have one. So when you go to the fruits are just there. You see the word fruit, you see the fruits. And then when you get in here, but it is important that they're checkerboarded. This is what I was trying to tell you. I didn't line these up next to each other in a row. If they had been lined up together, that'd make it much harder for you, Anthony. Do you agree? The checkerboarding makes it easier for your hands to touch.
Yeah.
So spasticity, eye gaze, head pointing, checkerboarding makes the separation, makes them easier visual perceptually and motorically. I could go through some categories with you for fun, because they're kind of fun to do. Once you see the fun in it, but I want you to know that you can have as much fun as we come up with. So just know, let's say you go to clothing or something. So let's say you go to clothing you wear. So pants, think to yourself, why would pants be it up? Well, pull your pants up. If you ever had John Halloran's body, you'll know that every time I bend over, someone's telling me to pull my pants up. So there's a reason why I know that that's where pants is. And every time I buy a shirt and I wash it, it gets too little. So I'm tired of buying shirts that I get to wear one time, and the next thing I know, it's too little. So see, and sweaters. Oh, I'm so proud to get that Christmas sweater. Look at me wearing my big Christmas sweater. Or maybe, see, you can make this stuff up and you say it's good. Well, it's really good when you get a pair of shoes, and that thumb there that thumb looks just like a shoehorn. You got to use your thumbs to get your shoes on. So this is just being creative and thinking about how much fun it can be to learn that. But what I fear is that if we show people that, they're going to say, you think people can understand that clothing plus good plus a thumb that looks like a shoehorn, people have to understand all that to learn it. They don't, but it is really nice when you add that Bruce Baker genius to the mix, to the sauce.
Well, I think we have just one more question for you both. What would you say to a high school student that thinks AAC is too slow? The student I'm thinking of can speak, but is never clear due to CP affecting his breath support.
Well, first thing is, if the individual doesn't want to use it, and then that is the kind of their choice in life. I think sometimes you have to be frank with people. Just to be truthful, when Anthony gave his speech in practice and it all came out in one button, I didn't want to tell you that you needed to change the way you give a speech and give it one line at a time and stop and pause, because you're a genius and a savant and a mentor to me. But I had to be frank and honest and tell you that that isn't as effective as you can be, Anthony. And I've always wondered why, when you go to conferences, people let people like Anthony give a speech all at one button instead of giving it one line at a time. So I think this young man might need some just some blunt honesty sometimes. If you want to have relationships outside of the people that know you and want to make a lot of money and do things, using this AAC device might be a tool to get there. And maybe you can find ways to get all those things without it, but I think communication really opens up a lot of doors for you. And then they need mentors. They need to see Catlena's and Lance's and Anthony's and Lucas's and see the achievements of people who use a communication device. But in the end, I'm guessing if they say, yeah, I see those options, but it makes me feel like I stick out or something, I don't choose to do it, then you're going to have an uphill battle until they make that internal choice to change that about them, about their future. Probably a harsh answer.
Do you have any to add to that, Anthony?
And I feel we each need to experience life my communication was dying, and I needed on to change something before it was history. And I feel we each need to experience life. My communication was dying and I needed to change something before it was history.
Amen. So I hope so the person finds the ability to learn it so they can have the options you're seeing and enjoying in life, continue to do it, like Anthony. I constantly want to call you Lance. Or first one, that's a compliment. You're both very inspirational to me. All right, Stephanie. Thank you, Anthony. Or does you think we need? Is there one more you think we have to answer?
I think that's it. I would love to read this comment from Bonnie that says, Anthony, you are a wonderful human being. I remember you from PEC too. Heck, many thanks for your help.
Oh, beautiful. All right, Anthony. Thank you, my friend. You did a great job. Checks in the mail.
Thanks, guys. It was a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. You guys have a good night.
Thank you all.